Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a Shadow Magic Sorcerer multi-class with the Swarmkeeper Ranger in Baldur's Gate 3. This is a requested build. I got a few requests for it and I want to put this together because the Shadow Magic Sorcerer is actually a really good multi-class. So with this, we're going to start off with the Shadow Magic Sorcerer because starting this way gets us Constitution saving throw proficiency. It also gives us the Strength of the Grave early game, which will keep us alive. When we get down, we come back up with 1 health point. As for the cantrips, we'll be grabbing Booming Blade since we can add in a martial class like the Ranger to this. We also want to grab Mage Hand because you can throw water balls to set up lightning damage with that. I also like to have some form of spell to get away from targets like Shocking Grasp. And then the last one, Bone Chill, is a good choice too. If there's a target that heals themselves, you can stop that from happening. We also get to take 2 spells, and we're going to grab Shield and Magic Missile because Magic Missile gives us guaranteed damage and Shield will protect us, keep us alive longer. And for the ability score spread, we actually don't need to invest in Wisdom because the Ranger spells we get aren't as good, obviously, as the Charisma-based spells we get from the Sorcerer. So 16 Dexterity, 14 Constitution, 10 Intelligence, Wisdom, and 16 Charisma. You can swap Dexterity with Constitution, but I think that's better to go with a high Dexterity. And the outfit is the Ethereal Threads mod. Level 2 gives us our Meta Magics, which we want to grab Distance Spell to increase spell range by 50%, and Twin Spell so we can Twin Haste to 2 targets. And we'll also grab another spell here. I like to take Thunderwave for the pushback. Although you could go with Ice Knife if you get silenced, or the Chromatic Orb as a damage option. You can choose the elemental damage type, which is actually pretty good since we are going to have a dog, the dog of Ill Omen, a Shadow Hound, which can actually get our sorcery points back by using the Chromatic Orb spell. Level 3 is a big power spike for us. This gives us the Eyes of the Darkness because we can cast this and we get to see in this darkness, which is huge because then we can become a stealth archer. And with this, we also get some spells here with things like Shadow Blade being very strong because if you want to use a melee attack, Shadow Blade's the best choice, especially with Darkness because Darkness will give you advantage on your attack rolls. And this can do upwards of a 4d8 of damage, which is doubled. So essentially 8d8 of damage on a melee attack. You can't beat that, unfortunately. So it is really strong. We also get Scorching Ray here, Misty Step, so there's a lot of great choices for spells, even Hold Person. I would recommend either Scorching Ray, Shadow Blade, or the Hold Person spell. I'm going to go with Scorching Ray for a guaranteed early game damage option, and we're going to grab Quicken Spell for bonus action spell casting. This is really nice. Into level 4, we get to take another cantrip here. We could have Firebolt or the Minor Illusion, even Friends View, the face of the party, but Firebolt allows us to explode things. And for our next level spell, I would recommend grabbing Hold Person. It's just a really good spell to have. However, Shadow Blade is very tempting because it does give you a very strong melee attack. We also get to add another feat here. So Alert for the +5 to initiative is always a good choice. You can go with a Charisma increase to better your spell casting. And if you want to use bow attacks, we could add in Sharpshooter to increase the overall weapon damage. But I think personally, either Alert or our Charisma increase will be the best choices. Even Dual Wielder has some effects because we could grab Shadow Blade and have a staff in the offhand. Level 5 gives us some of our best spells in the game with Counterspell, Fireball, Haste, and Lightning Bolt, all high contenders for some of the best spells that we can grab. Lightning Bolt is my personal preference because we can double that 48 damage to make it essentially like a 96 damage, pretty crazy. Haste is also nice because we can twin this to another target, and Fireball, always tried and true, good spell. At this point, you can remove a spell. Like if you find you're not using Chromatic Orb, you can take that off and then grab something like Counterspell, as obviously Counterspell is extremely effective to grab. I actually find that it's best to take this class up to level 6 because this gives us our Hound of Ill Omen and it's a bonus action, 3 sorcery points. You can actually summon this in before a long rest, and then your long rest and the dog stays with you. We can then grab another spell here, and I think that Shadow Blade ends up being the strongest choice here. Although Fireball is another really good choice too, if you wanted to swap things out here, like getting rid of one of these spells. Maybe you don't use Magic Missile that much, then you can swap that out and take Fireball. Although I prefer having Magic Missile, some people just don't end up using it that much. At this point, I think it's best to add in the Ranger. And for the favorite enemy, if you want heavy armor, you can grab that Ranger Knight. Otherwise, the Bounty Hunter will give targets disadvantage on their saving throw against Ensnaring Strike, which is nice, but not as necessary. I mean, if you want heavy armor, Ranger Knight. We also get a Natural Explorer, and we can grab the Beast Tamer to give ourselves a Raven, which can set blind on the target, but we also have a dog, so we don't really need that summon. And I actually like taking the Wasteland Wanderer Fire for the resistance to fire damage, which is always a good thing to have. Into level 2 here, we get access to some Ranger spells. Fog Cloud's like a worse version of our Darkness. We don't want that. Hunter's Mark can be nice, but we have other concentration, so I wouldn't always recommend utilizing that. But sometimes it's nice against bigger targets if you don't need the stealth. And Long Strider, increasing movement speed, that's a great choice. Now we can also go with a fighting style here and take the defense perk for the +1 to our armor class, or archery if we were going to be focusing more on ranged weapon attacks. But I think defense ends up being more beneficial as it applies no matter what we're doing on the offense. So next, level 3, we get to take our subclass. I guess at this point we get the mage hand, which we already have. So that's something to keep in mind. But mage hand can only be cast once per short rest and has a 10-turn limit. We get the Prey Scent though, so this gives additional damage against the targets that are afflicted by our Hunter's Marks. We do an extra 1d6 damage. That's great. We also get Fairy Fire. Now what's great is if we have Shadow Blade, this actually buffs up our damage quite a bit. And since we're going with Psychic damage, Flurry of Moths does additional Psychic damage, can blind the targets, Jellyfish for lightning, or Legion of Bees for piercing, but I think Flurry of Moths is best. We get to take another spell here. We could grab Cure Wounds. This is a heal. I mean, it's something. Really, any of these spells here are not super useful. Ensnaring Strike eats our bonus action, and we're a sorcerer. We want to quicken our spells, so using that is not always the greatest option. Level 4 gives us another choice in spell or selection here. We could go with an increase to dexterity or a constitution. And again, Alert Feat is always a great choice. Dual wielder if you want to use 2 weapons, and a Shadow Blade or a Sharpshooter to boost up your overall damage from bows. But this is where we get our extra attack, which is nice. We're now melee and spellcasting focus. We also get the web spell. Don't really recommend using it because it does eat up a concentration, which we want on our darkness spell. And we also get to like level 2 spells. Now this is kind of interesting because Pass Without Trace gives a +10 to spell checks that does require your concentration. Would be nice to get darkness plus this, but it's the way she goes. Spike Growth is also quite nice, giving a crowd control option, which does damage to the enemy, which I do like. Silence is good too, but I honestly think that Pass Without Trace or Spike Growth would be our best choices, despite both of them do require concentration. So yeah, that's something. But we got our extra attack here. We got pretty much what we want. Level 6 can give us more favorite enemies. I don't think it's the best choice. I actually think it's best to stay with the Sorcerer because we get another sorcery point and we get level 5 spells. So that's nice. And as a treat, we also get Ice Storm, which is one of the best spells in the game because damage and crowd control without concentration. That's fantastic. So we'll grab that there for our final spell. We actually have a lot of crowd control with this build. All right, so as far as gear goes, I like personally the hat of our Helmet of Arcane Acuity to give yourself Arcane Acuity for 2 turns. An Arrow of Many Targets can give you a +10 to your spell save DC, which is a huge boost. However, you can also just use a different helmet, like the Hat of Fire Acuity, if you wanted to cast Scorching Ray to get your spell save DC up. The Hood of the Weave will just give you a flat 2 bonus, which is also nice to go with. And I also like the Pyro Quickness hat because if you use Fireball, Scorching Ray, you get an extra bonus action despite burning yourself. And we can actually use the Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power to get our Arcane Acuity up, because if you use Booming Blade, or if you attack, just a regular attack with Shadow Blade will trigger this, so we get our Arcane Acuity up pretty quickly that way. So either of those for Arcane Acuity. We got the Cloak of Protection for better armor class, or Deathstalker Mantle if you're the Dirge. Armor of Agility, best in slot. Medium armor puts our armor class up to 27, which is actually quite huge. However, you could go with the Ballast Armor and go piercing damage, or really if the Adamantine Scale Mail will be one of the best early game options, or Robes with Mage Armor if you're at the very start of the game. So just grab the best available, although we do get the heavy armor proficiencies. So even the Dwarven Splint Mail for the boost to our Constitution's great if you don't have someone, or if you have the Constitution ammo on somebody else. Now it's really up to you. Protecting Spark Wall can be kind of nice because you can focus on lightning damage with the Spell Sparkler early game. And then we also get the Evasive Shoes, although we could go with the Boots of Stormy Clamor. This does drop our AC down a bit, but that is fine. Now I have the Cold Snap Dagger here because this does a little extra cold damage. But the best choice, obviously, as I mentioned, is Shadow Blade. But if you don't want to use Shadow Blade, the Knife of the Undermounted King is a great choice because this will give you increased critical hit chance with both our Scourging Rays and our bow attacks. So that's nice. We could also go with one of the other staffs, like Staff of Spell Power. I like to also grab Mark of Heshker because there's a lot of cool things we can do. So we can grab the Kreska's Favor there and then give ourselves the Bolts of Doom, which will give us the lightning charges there. And it also gives us access to these spells too. Now the thing is, unfortunately, whenever we do this, we do run out of options for combat. So I would actually recommend taking this. We do have a level 5 spell slot. Use the Arcane Battery and then cast yourself in an upcasted Shadow Blade, which will do a 4d8 of damage. This is going to be our strongest melee option. You don't have to do this. Just going to clarify that right now. You don't have to use Shadow Blade because this is a spellcaster ranged attacker, but Shadow Blade will out damage both those options just because with the Resonance Stone, it'll double that. So it's like an 8d8 plus damage. And then you get advantage on attack rolls because of darkness. So yeah, the damage on Shadow Blade is absolutely nuts. So that's really nice. We also got the Hell Rider Longbow for that +3 to initiative. But you can also go with the Gaunter Mail there because that's another good one and it'll light your character up. So with the light, you can actually use the Coruscation Ring, which will give you the ability to apply Radiating Orbs on the enemies, which will further stack your Boots of Stormy Clamor. So Reverberation and Radiating Orbs Killer Sweetheart for free crit, which is always a nice choice, but you could go with like Crusher's Ring for increased movement speed, the Ring of Free Action and not get stuck in place, Ring of Arcane Synergy, which will give you your Charisma modifier on weapon attacks, which could be also quite nice. Just really depends how you want to build out your character. And early game, the Titan String Bow is a good choice too. Now, if you know you're getting yourself into a fight, the best thing you do is drop down the Eyes of the Dark, which will give you your basically get out of jail free card because you can hide out in there. It does aggro people, so that is something. Now, the best thing about this is it breaks line of sight, so people have a hard time dealing with you. What's great about that is you can sometimes section away which enemies to focus on because they're going to have a hard time with attacking you. And what we want to first start off with is taking out the targets that are close to our allies. So we can also then go ahead, I guess, with a crowd control spell like this, but I want to grab Arcane Acuity and stack that first. So we got our, we can attack with this here, which will give us a stack there. So we'll just go with the attack. And then we got our 2 turns of Arcane Acuity, which is great. So that was 100 plus damage on a single attack. Pretty crazy. We'll then attack the next high value target that we see right here. We have advantage because we're in a shadow, which is crazy because, yeah, then we can use our Flurry of Moth's teleport to give ourselves that free teleport so that we don't get hit by this target here with our opportunity attack. And we're back in our darkness with a nice +4 to Arcane Acuity because the weapon attacks apply that bonus. So now we have a 20 spell save DC, which is nice. So then we can go ahead with our crowd control by dropping Ice Storm right here. Ice will stack on top of fire. Surfaces don't stack with this, but we can actually set up ice outside of the range of our darkness so that enemies will end up slipping and falling. It also stacks 2 turns of radiating orbs on the enemies, so that's great too because we have basically they have -4 to their attack rolls and they have a chance of slipping on the ice here. Perfect. Now we got one left choice here. We got 5 sorcery points. Now we can go with a quicken spell, and if we wanted an extra bonus action to go even further hard with this, we could just drop like Fireball on a target. I wouldn't recommend doing this on your ice surface because it'll ruin your ice surface, but we can hit 3 targets here with a Fireball, so we'll cast away with that. And it applies radiating orbs on the enemies. Perfect. That's what we wanted. We burned ourselves and got that extra bonus action, so that's pretty crazy. And then we could go with really anything here. We could even convert a, basically turn our, we have 2 sorcery points left, so what we could do is, I mean, Illithid abilities work. If you want Mind Blast, that would take out these 3 enemies. That's a little bit too overpowered. But what we can do then is create a sorcery point with our spell slots. So I want 4 sorcery points. I'll use a level 4 spell slot. It's not probably the best choice to do that, but boom, we now have 2 quicken spells now. And we got one person failing a saving throw against the ice and another person failing their saving throw against the ice. That's the most great thing about Ice Storm is it ends up making people slip their turn, miss their turns often. And it's a beautiful thing. You see multiple targets just laying on the ground there. Now, what we can do is pretty fun because, oh, we got more enemies to go against. We're going to stack up some more Arcane Acuity. So we'll use, you can do Booming Blade per action. So that's great. With haste, you can do 2 Booming Blades. So that was good. A lot of damage off on that one. And then we'll follow up with just a single attack here. And actually what we could do is we could back off from this enemy and then attack with an arrow of many targets. So this is going to bounce around because this target will easily be taken out. And then the arrow bounces around to multiple attacks, our targets, and then we can apply the Flurry of Moth attack, which took out that target there, bouncing around, hitting more targets, and applying Guiding Bolt, which is great because Guiding Bolt comes from the Gaunter Mail Bow. So that was pretty smart because that took out 3 targets. Really nice. Now we got 1 action remaining and 1 bonus action. But what we can do is there's targets over here that I saw appeared. Perfect. So we can just walk over here and go with a Fireball. Now we can also upcast Fireball, which is pretty great. So we're just going to drop down a Fireball right there because that'll give us that extra bonus action. So boom, one of them didn't finish them off. That's fine. We have a Quicken Spell Fireball. That will do the trick as well. They have roughly half. I might actually upcast this to level 5 just for the extra damage. So hopefully take out those targets. Perfect. That finished them all off. So yeah, 4 targets right there. Yeah, we did burn through our our extra bonus actions, but that's something that it was worth it. They just attacked the ground for whatever reason. Not sure the reasoning behind that, but hey, we'll take it. And they got rid of the ice surface, which is fine, because then we can just drop this down again, which will hit all targets, which is awesome. We just gotta be careful because we do have ice in our darkness now. You'll actually see that it says darkness, and you mouse over it says darkness ice. So that's where we know not to go. We have 3 targets remaining. We use up one of our actions. Probably the best choice here is an arrow many targets so that we can apply the, hopefully, yeah, we got that leveled up. Boom, good amount of damage. And there it is. That was a good finisher. That's all it took. Now, this is a interesting build. The Flurry of Moths actually adds a bit of extra damage to your attacks. Getting Shadow Blade, Booming Blade, everything about this is pretty powerful, to be honest. I didn't think this subclass combination was going to work as well as it did, but it works. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you all in the next video.